What's happening, big dogs? Welcome back to another week, another episode, the second episode of Market Watch Mondays. On this week, we're going to cover some of the rookie running backs. And the reason why I want to cover them is because I've seen a lot of chatter on Twitter recently, a lot of it from guys I really trust and engage with on a daily basis, talking about how COVID-19 is going to have a lot of negative impacts on the rookies. They're going to have less training, be less ready, less time to adjust the playbook, a myriad of reasons for why they think you should be fading them. And I'm going to cover it both from a redraft perspective, which is probably more relevant in the next month or so, as most of you guys are playing in those types of leagues, as well as from a dynasty perspective, and why I think that it's a lot of noise. And personally, I'm fading it. I wanted to dig into numbers a little bit. So courtesy of Fantasy Mojo, got a lot of the redraft ADP, and then the dynasty ADP is going to be obviously from the BDG faithful. I'm going to talk about the big five, mainly edwards-helaire, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, Deandre Swift, and J.K. Dobbins. I know a lot of people love Keyshawn Vaughn. I personally don't care enough about him to cover him, and he's obviously like a big teardrop for me personally. So I'm just going to go with the big five for now. I'm going to throw the graphic up on the screen, and what you're going to see is in the first box is the redraft ADP for the last 2 weeks. And then on the right box, you're going to see the redraft ADP of May, and the delta just shows how much that player has fallen or risen within that period of time. And I'm not going to go over all of them because you see guys like Cam Akers and edwards-helaire have stayed relatively flat to where they were in May. But interesting ones to note are Jonathan Taylor. He was going as the 38th overall pick in the last 2 weeks, and in May he was going as a 32nd overall pick. He basically fell like half a round, which doesn't seem like a lot, but in those early rounds, I think that's actually a pretty big drop off in terms of tiers. And then Deandre Swift fell 7 spots from 52nd overall to 59th overall. J.K. Dobbins fell 10 spots, so almost a full round, 57th overall to 67th overall. And this just really does not make a lot of sense to me because there really hasn't been any news to actually influence some of this stuff. As you know, like there hasn't been much training camp. There hasn't been any hype. There hasn't been any videos other than like some workout videos. It really doesn't make any sense to me that someone like J.K. Dobbins or Deandre Swift or Jonathan Taylor are falling anywhere between half round to full round. I think a lot of that is going to be attributed to some of this COVID fears about rookies not being able to perform. And I just think that that's a little bit of a stretch and a little bit of an overreaction, to be honest, because if we look at the running back position itself, it is one of the easiest positions to transfer from college to the pros. It's one of the easiest positions to learn. And I think that that's the reason why we tell you guys to go running back heavy in your rookie draft, because those guys usually produce earlier on than wide receivers, right? And in this year in particular, I want to focus on 2 names here, is Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins. And people talk a lot about how, there might be a lot of risk of them learning the playbook. There's not enough time, blah, blah, blah. But why are we so high on these guys coming in, right? If we look at their dynasty ADP, I mean, they're way up there. J.K. Dobbins going at 26th overall. Jonathan Taylor's going at 17th overall. So basically at the back part of the second round. And the reason why we're comfortable taking them there is because we know they fit so well into that system, right? We look at J.K. Dobbins, Noah and I have said this a lot before. The one weakness in his game, or not even weakness, one worry we had for him in the pros is if he did not have a mobile quarterback, how would we handle it? Because all of his production came with Justin Fields or JT Barrett, both guys who were really mobile and could actually run and open up a lot of those holes and let J.K. Dobbins' athleticism really jump out and take over. So what happens? He comes to the NFL, lands with probably the most electric and most prolific running quarterback of all time. That is Lamar Jackson. He is an incredible talent. And the Baltimore Ravens have an incredible line, incredible team, incredible offense. I don't understand why this fall and drop off. I mean, if he's there in the 6th round, guys, I'm picking him up every single time, because if you have constructed your roster properly and went running back early on, you will have that runway for him to kind of come online. And whether that's week 4, week 5, week 6, we don't know, right? But when he does come online, I think J.K. Dobbins will be a league winner. Similarly, if we look at Jonathan Taylor, it's a lot of the same story, right? Like what were his concerns coming in? He ran behind a top offensive line in Wisconsin. What if he lands in a poor O-line in the NFL? How is he going to translate? Well, guess what? He landed in a perfect situation running behind Indianapolis Colts O-line led by the best offensive lineman in the NFL in Quentin Nelson. And, they run a lot of the same schemes, power runner. So I don't like, as much as we want to exaggerate like the playbook and all that stuff, I think these 2 fits are just so goddamn natural that it really does not matter. I think that COVID is really striking fear in people. And to be honest with you, I think come late August, come early September, when you are doing your redraft leagues, I think these rookie running backs are going to actually become a value. And if you have constructed your rosters properly in the top part of the draft by locking down some workhorse studs and balancing it out with some veterans, I think your team will be able to make the playoffs, which is when these guys will really flourish. So I say that all to say this: do not let the fear mongering put you off of some of these rookie running backs, because they are great talents. And, even Deandre Swift, right? He's someone, he's my RB5 of the class, right? And that doesn't mean because I think he sucks. It's because I think the situations for the other guys are a lot better. But even DeAndre Swift is better than Kerryon Johnson in every facet of the game, whether it's receiving, whether that's running, whether that's pass pro, what have you. So when you have an elite talent like that in a backfield like this, you do want to see if that talent can win out. So DeAndre Swift falling a full 7 picks from pick 52 to 59 when there's been literally no news about Kerryon Johnson and the Lions also doesn't make sense to me. And it just comes back to this whole like the fear settling. Nothing to talk about. So all we can talk about is COVID. And just like in the stock market, when you flood the market with like news, like it's going to impact the psyche of people, but it doesn't necessarily impact what I call the fundamentals and the fundamentals of valuation. And in this case, the fundamentals of why we were so high on J.K. Dobbins, Edwards-Helaire, Deandre Swift, and Jonathan Taylor and Cam Akers to begin with. We were high on them because of the right reasons, and none of those reasons have changed. The only thing that's changed is the perception and the fear of COVID-19, because that's the only news that we're getting. So from a redraft perspective, I honestly think that some of these guys will become a value come August and September. From a dynasty perspective, they're already pretty highly valued. And I'll throw up the comp for you there as well between the redraft and the dynasty comparison, just so you can see the gap. But guys like J.K. Dobbins, in dynasty, he's going at 26 overall. In redraft, he's going at 67. That's a 41 difference, right? And the reason why I want to show you this graphics is because, look, dynasty is about long-term. We care about long-term for sure, but not to like this degree. There should not be that big of a gap between DeAndre Swift's dynasty ADP and his redraft ADP. J.K. Dobbins' dynasty ADP and his redraft ADP. It just like really reminds me of like the Nick Chubb year when everyone was so worried about like Carlos Hyde and about Chubb not getting an opportunity. But like, what happened at the end of the day, like they could not keep Chubb off the field. And I think I see that storyline and story arc playing out for a lot of these rookies, which is why I don't think you should fade him. Okay. So at the end of the day, you got to stick to your fundamentals, man. Much like in stock market evaluation and when you're investing, you got to stick to your fundamentals in dynasty. If you have the fundamentals right, and I believe I do, and hopefully we've conveyed that message to you. If you believe in your fundamentals, do not sway your reaction and overreactions too heavily with like week to week like market perception news. And that's why I created this segment, and I hope this segment is helpful because I want to be able to help you distinguish between what is perceived value changes and what should be actual value changes. And in this case, in case of the 2020 stud rookie running back class, I think it's a lot of perception value changes and not real fundamental value changes. So in closing, make sure you fade that noise. Hope you all enjoyed, and back next week with another episode of Market Watch Mondays. Make sure you check out the videos this week. Got 5 Fact Fridays. You got the weekly BBB episode. We also did a Q&A this week, so a lot of content coming your way.